Greetings, beautiful people. Welcome back to FindXYZ. Today we are going to talk about significant figures. Whenever you walk into a mall, you see the prices of products in labels. Mostly you see the products, for example, a product will cost $2.45. Let me ask you, have you ever seen a product with this label as $2.456478? Absolutely no. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this somewhere. Why? Because we don't have a currency which is very small like this number, right? So it means that the precision or the size of our money ends in two decimal places. If we add more, we can't have anything to represent that in our currencies. Also, when you measure a bag, a very small, tiny bag, using your ruler, and you write 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 centimeters long, I'll definitely look at this and laugh, because on our rulers, we can't get this precision, right? So numbers ranging from 1 to 2, we have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. That is just one decimal place. Any additional value that you add to your ruler measurement is just a guesswork. You realize that we are only focusing on numbers that our tool can hold. So let's dive in. How do you identify significant values? The first one I'll talk about is non-zero digits. Now, non-zero digits are numbers that range from 1 to 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. These numbers are always significant. Always. The key word is always. Regardless of wherever they are always significant. The first example I want to give is 125. You realize that all these numbers are non-zero digit. Hence, we have 3 significant figures. So anytime you see a non-zero digit, they are significant. Clearly, we don't see any zero here, right? So when can 0 be significant? The first thing 0 can be significant, I call it the sandwich zeros. Whenever you have zeros stuck in between two non-zero digits, that is when the 0 becomes significant. That is not the only way, but whenever you have 0 stuck in between non-zero digits, the zeros are significant. So the sandwich zeros are significant. So the first example is 2005. We have 0 stuck in between non-zero digits. We classify them as significant. How many significant values? We have 4 significant figures. It doesn't matter the number of zeros once they are stuck in between two non-zero digits. So I can write 5000005. Then zeros are significant. So how many significant values? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 significant figures. Now, let me ask you, if you have this value, right, this number in your account, and the bank manager decides to give you $55 and tell you the zeros are not significant, you are definitely going to be pissed, right? It changes the value entirely. You are going to be mad at the bank manager, right? So you realize that when zeros are stuck in between non-zero digits, the 0 becomes significant. So you take note of that. Then third one I want to talk about is leading zeros. A bunch of zeros in front of a number. Leading zeros are not significant. So if I have when you have 0000005, you have a lot of zeros that are leading the number. All these zeros, they are not significant. Okay, they are not significant. If you have $0.000005 in your account, it's still $5. So all these zeros are not significant. So how many significant values or figures do we have? We have just one significant figure. Okay. Another example before we move on to the next one is if you are given 0.00003. Similarly, they are all leading zeros. So leading zeros are not significant. They are not significant. Okay, so take note of that. I will not waste time on leading zeros because they are not significant. They are just placeholders, right? The last but not the least, which is called trailing zeros. They are very dramatic. I'll prefer to partition this into 2 parts, with decimal point, without decimal point. So the first one, a number with a decimal point. So a number with a decimal point with a trailing 0 is always significant. So the first example, if I have 20,000.00, immediately you see this decimal point. Every digit here is significant. Every 0 you see here becomes significant. So you take note of that. Mostly students confuse themselves with that. But once immediately you see the decimal point, this decimal point, then the number becomes significant. So how many significant values do we have here? We are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 significant figures. The next example, imagine you are having, so whenever you see trailing zeros, right, like all these are trailings, right? They are trailing numbers. And there is a decimal point, everything becomes significant. So all the digits become significant, right? All the zeros become significant. Even this is a sandwich 0. How many significant values do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 significant figures. So that is for a number with a decimal point. The trillion zeros become significant. It doesn't matter the number of zeros. Once it is a trailing zero with a decimal point, the zeros are significant. How about a number without a decimal point? So for example, can write 20,000. Does it have a decimal point? Nope. Hence, it has only one significant value. The trailing zeros, because there's no decimal point, these digits are just placeholders. We are just giving the value to the number. So we have one significant figure. So trailing zeros without a decimal point, you only count the non-zero digits as significant values. Is that okay? Another example before we move on to the next part. How many significant values are we having? We have 0 stuck in between two non-zero digits. So obviously this is 3 significant figures. Whenever you have a trailing zero, first question you ask yourself, do you see a decimal point or not? If you don't see a decimal point, it means that the trailing zeros are not significant. So all these zeros are just placeholders. They are not significant, right? So we have 3 significant values. Okay, we have 3 significant figures. Let's move on to the next part where we are going to round these numbers. Now, sometimes we are working on a currency and we get $25.78923. Because our currency doesn't have such a small amount, we have to round the number. That is what we are going to do in this section. In rounding, you consider 3 things. The first thing, you consider the cutoff point, right? How many digits do you want to round? So for example, we can decide to round this to 4 significant figures. So you consider the cutoff point. Then you consider, after identifying the cutoff point, so our cutoff point is 4, then you consider the next digit. The next digit, I would prefer to call him the next neighbor. After identifying the next digit, then you apply the 5 rule. Now, if the next digit is 5 or more, this is what you do. You boost the last digit, right? So let's use this to explain. So let me write the figure here. So we have 25.78923. How many significant values? 4. So that is our cutoff point. Then we look at the next digit. What is the next digit? 9. What can we do? Whenever you have a number which is 5 or more, you boost the last number. What is the last number? 8. So we have to boost it with an additional 1. So we have 25.7 from 8. You have to add 1 digit to it as a boost. Then we have 79. This is 4 significant figures. However, if you have 5 or less, you just throw the rest away and then you are good to go. If it has a decimal point, you just throw the numbers away. If it has no decimal point, you replace the numbers with zeros. So let's try one example. Imagine you have 36,728 and you are asked to round this to 2 significant figures. Do we have a decimal point? No, we don't have a decimal point. So the first thing, what is your cutoff point? The cutoff point is just 2. So let's consider the first 2 digits. That is it. Then we locate the next digit, which is 7. Then you apply the 5 rule. Is it 5 or more? Yes, it is 5 or more. Then you have to boost the last digit. And what is the last digit? 6. So we add 1 to the last digit, making 37. Because there's no decimal point, all these numbers tend to 0. Why? Because first part we said trailing zeros are not significant. So obviously we still have our 2 significant values. Do you see that? We still have our 2 significant values. Why is it very important to add these zeros? They are very crucial because without the zeros, change the number entirely. Realize that 37 is nowhere close to 37,000. Okay, so whenever there's no decimal point, after applying the 5 rule, all the other digits changes to 0. Okay, so take note of that. Let's take the last example. So for example, 28,729.25, and we are asked to write this into 3 significant figures. The first thing is identify what your cutoff point. So our cutoff point is just 3. So the first 3. Then you locate the next number. Then you locate the next digit. What is the next digit? That is 2. Then we apply the 5 rule. Is it 5 or more? Nope, it is less. So this is what we have to. Whenever there's a decimal point, the zeros are significant. So we only write the zeros without the decimal point. Okay, so we have 287. Then we only add these zeros. So 0, 0. Once you bring the decimal point, it makes the zeros become significant. Okay, so it means that this is not significant. So we still have our 3 significant values. So that is 3 significant values. This is why it is very important to know which numbers are significant and which numbers are not. Zeros are only significant when they are in between 2 non-zero digits or they are trailing zeros with a decimal point. If we don't have a decimal point, the zeros are not significant. I hope you found this helpful. Kindly share, like, comment, and don't forget to think, find, and shine. I'm out.